All right, so this one is a subscriber request. Moral Orel is the topic for today's video. And I gotta be honest, I had never heard of it before someone requested it. And I was just like, you know what? Challenge accepted. Let's go. So if you have requests for videos that you want me to cover, go ahead and drop them in the comments. I have no shortage of shit that I want to cover, but judging by the performance of a lot of my videos, sounds like not a ton of people care. So if you got something that you care about and you want to see me cover, let me know and I'll do my best to tackle that topic. I gotta say, this one was kind of a hard watch because it goes from like hilarious to just like downright sick and sad, and yeah, but I got through it and I'm glad that I did. I feel like a better person for it. All right, so what I've learned about Moral Orel from watching this is that there's a specific kind of person who really connects with this. It's not a show for the masses. Specifically, it's relevant to young adults who grew up in, I would say, moderately religious homes in smaller, homogenous American towns where everyone sort of fit the mold, but as adults became very disillusioned with the hypocrisy that they saw between their community values and their home lives. And I think that's true for a lot of Americans. In other words, if you feel seen by Moral Orel, you probably come from a disenchanted middle-class American family. And I think I started to connect the show once I really got into it because of my personal background, which I'm going to share a little bit about here. And if you don't care about this, there's chapter markers. You can go ahead and skip ahead, but maybe this is something that you can relate to. So my personal background is that I grew up in a suburban middle-class family that was pseudo-religious. I think the term used by many is, quote, cafeteria Catholics. Basically what that means is my family espoused the importance of going to church and believing in Christ and confessing sins and all that, but was really selective about which parts of Christianity that we interacted with. And I went to CCD, which is like an after-school religious education, and I went to that once a week where I learned about Christianity, but more importantly, I feel like I was unlearning what my biology and chemistry teachers were telling me in public school about evolution and abiogenesis and physics and the measurable phenomena of the world. If I had questions about the disparity between my religion and the things that I was hearing in my class with my science teachers, my teachers would take the time to talk me through the separation of church and state. But when I approached my CCD teacher about the same thing, the occasional priest sometimes, they would just say religion is about faith, and all those things that you learn in school are made up by the devil to convince you that God isn't real. So there was like the truth that I experienced every day as a human in the world, and my religion was telling me to just kind of, hey, forget all that, disregard it because it's not real. And I think doing that, by doing that, the church was teaching me to actually question authority and not believe everything I see and hear, which ironically is what set up the frame of mind that dissuaded me from religion and ultimately led me to a more humanitarian view of the world rather than a traditionally Catholic one. You see, my church and my parents were telling me things that I should believe, but what I really learned was the unintended implication of those teachings. Instead of learning the concept of faith, for example, and a higher power, what I was really taught was that I should question my teachers, and to me, that included my priest. Instead of believing in the healing power of Christ who apparently died to save me, I learned to believe in myself instead. And if there was a forgiving God out there who would allow me to repent from my sins, then I was free to explore the taboo because I would be forgiven and welcomed back at the end of the day, so I could question the nature of religion without consequence. In short, I learned the things that religion didn't intend for me to learn, but by design reinforced, and my religion empowered me to question it ironically and leave it. And it's with all this context that I regard Moral Orel as a show about the unintended consequences of religious, familial, and community values that cause existential crises and reinforce broken patterns of behavior. It's a show about taking the wrong lessons from moral teachings and the pain that can arise from the resulting hypocrisy. Everyone in this show misunderstands, misrepresents, misinterprets what they hear from other people who are meant to love and support them. Family, for example, has this knack to not respond to the words that you're saying, but rather what they think the words imply, which is why in traditional or, quote, nuclear family structures, we get trapped in behavioral patterns that may not always be healthy, which is exactly what's going on here between Orel's parents, his mom and his dad. Orel's parents follow the rules, and they follow the things that they were told about how marriage and family should look and how it should be. And when life doesn't pan out the way that they expected it to, it causes them to suffer because they're failing to live up to their own expectations of themselves. Instead of learning unconditional love and working to make the relationship better, Orel's parents are actually learning the resentment, misery, and suffering that comes from sacrifice instead of experiencing the rewards that come when you work on yourself for each other, like appreciation, respect, and loyalty. They do what they think they have to do, and in the process, they lose a sense of themselves, and it leaves them feeling miserable and empty. Then there's the church, and the same can sort of be said there. Orel hears these lessons and through deductive reasoning takes the complete wrong message from them, and it honestly is fucking hilarious. Like, some of the things that he does, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. It's also the complete fucking wrong thing, but it's hilarious.
All I do is sneak into their houses while they're sleeping and squirt my sperm into them so I can masturbate and go to heaven.
Look, Samson, crack! Hooray! Hey, Orel, you better try some. It's a sin to waste your money.
The rules that his Protestant pastor set for him always have this sense of foreignness or hypocrisy for Orel, so he explores the loopholes in the rules to try and make sense of them. Instead of learning the moral implication behind what's being said, he instead tries to compensate for the lack of congruence with his own lived truth, the things that he sees and that he experiences. There's a difference between the beliefs that he's being taught and the actions that he sees people take, and his innocence makes him imagine elaborate interpretations of these rules and behaviors to make the two opposing practices fit. In the end, Orel breaks away from all of this. It's kind of heartbreaking to watch, though. You know, you see his transformation from innocent youth attempting to make sense of humanity and the hypocrisy around him to this completely disillusioned preteen, and it really depresses him.
I hate you.
Hate away, sister.
And you can kind of see the seeds being planted that will make him grow up to be this miserable and depressed person just like his father was. But it's also liberating because by seeing the flaws and becoming disenchanted with this authority figure at such a young age, he gets to change the course of his own adulthood. The show ended pretty abruptly. You know, it got canceled, and not necessarily on the writers' terms, but the writers did get the opportunity to conclude the story, albeit abruptly, and we don't get the full walk-up that takes Orel from this innocent youth to a functioning adult. But the creators chose to end the show the way that they chose to end it, and I think there's some significance in unpacking why. They ended it on this episode where Orel spends the day with his coach, who is also his dad's secret lover, and he's trying to find a way to respect and honor his father after all the shitty things that he's done. Through the course of the episode, Orel and Coach Stopframe partake in activities like how a father and a son would, and at the end, Orel discovers that his dad is secretly having a relationship with this man. Orel is disappointed, and he says that, you know, now I can't find any reason to honor my father because his father is not a man worth honoring. And the coach says that if nothing else, his dad made him, and that's worth honoring.
In his own blundering way, your father made you. And that's honorable.
And that seems to be enough to transform Orel as we know him into a grown-up with a happy family of his own on Christmas Day. He could have very well ended up like his father. I mean, he had everything going against him, but Reverend Putty plays over the radio saying that nobody knows what it takes to make a happy family because a loving home is a miracle. And then he says amen before taking it back and says, who am I kidding?
The end. Amen. Nah, who am I kidding? The end.
Implying that religious and moral upbringing did nothing to make Orel the functioning and loving adult he becomes. We have to make a lot of inferences about who Orel becomes and how he becomes that, but I think the clues are all there to show us exactly why and how he ends up all right despite having everything going against him. Moral Orel matters because it's telling us that sometimes family is just the people that we get stuck with, but it can be more than that. To honor your family, your community, your religion means to be someone honorable in your own right and to be better than what's come before you. Orel honors his father by being someone that his father could never be. He breaks the generational cycle of abuse and misery by escaping the hypocrisy and the bullshit and presumably walking the walk and always making sense of the world around him in a way that is meaningful, finding the love and the good in the world filled with impossible standards masquerading as morality. And that's something that he's always tried to do as a kid, and we can only assume that he learned to do that but better as an adult. It's by being better than his father and by being a stable adult with a loving family family that he honors his father, because he becomes the one thing that his father gave to the world that was honorable. Out of misery and loneliness, his father inadvertently taught Orel how not to be. Like with his Protestant religion, Orel learned the wrong lessons from his father. He should have learned to be selfish and to be an alcoholic and be abusive and be an asshole who hates his life, but instead he questioned it and became better for it. If there's anything that this show has to teach us, it's to question things. Question your parents, your community, your religion. Question the things that don't add up or make sense. Question the things that hurt you, and question your own devotion to them. When you question morality itself, you may find that you're empowered to break unhealthy patterns of behavior that those morals create and find new ones to live by and make you happier and an independent person. And shit, maybe you'll make a YouTube channel like me. Wouldn't that be something? Anyway, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Media Matters. This was an episode that was, like I said, requested by a subscriber. So if you have a video that you want me to do, you have a topic you want me to cover, let me know. Just drop it in the comments. I did really enjoy this show after getting to watch it and understanding it and unpacking it. And it's actually a really quick show to get through. Like each episode is like 15 minutes and there's not many of them. I got through them in like 2 nights, which is faster than I got through Squid Game. So there you go. Check out Orel. It's a pretty solid watch. Anyway, thanks again. Subscribe, like, do all the things.